I depend. Yaro, ebusie. Yaro, drums.
In 1969, when we won the FA Cup, the then Minister of Transport, T.D. Brodements, and one Kojo Mensah, popularly known in Cape Coast as Kojo Alata, they told Prime Minister Buzia that there should be a champion of champions between the FA Cup champions and then the league champions. Kotoko won the league, so a cup was put on for us to contest for champion of champions, which was called the Prime Minister's Cup, because at that time we had a Prime Minister as the head of government business. That was the cup we won. We beat Kotoko 1-0 to win that cup. It was just after that match that Kotoko came and took Robert Mensah away to go and help them for the African Cup of Nations. But the Prime Minister Cup today is what we call the President's Cup. Yeah, that is what we have as
we have heard a lot about Robert Mensah. In fact, it's a story that's been told by some of our colleagues who didn't live at the time. What and how can you describe the man Robert Mensah? I'm just coming from the Robert Mensah Stadium. I did a few links from there trying to say that he's arguably the best goalkeeper to have been produced from here. And the goalkeeper had that kind of personality. How can you tell us the story of Robert Mensah in 3 minutes?
Robert controlled footballers on the field. If we're talking about goalkeepers controlling the playing body from the back, I saw it with Robert. To some of us at that time in the mid-1960s to early 70s, if a goalkeeper was doing that, then that goalkeeper understood what he was doing. He never played with his training. He would run from the Victoria Park to St. Augustine's, beyond to University Junction, go and train in there. He did his personal training on the beaches. And he went out with small boys. They would throw the ball to him. No, that was what he was doing. When he comes to the field and he's in post, you realize that you are safe. There is a safe hands. And we will say that he's one person dwarfs can never forget him, because he made dwarfs. I can't forget the 1969 experience with Asante Kotoko. 1969, yeah, where we beat them 5-0. I was just a schoolboy. I've entered at this school Form 1 in 69. And it was an interesting experience. We saw him reading a newspaper in the post. The referee had to come in, because it was like dwarfs against Kotoko, and Kotoko was not moving. Kotoko was not moving towards dwarfs, as if they were playing a half pitch.
And he was reading the newspaper.
He was reading his newspaper. I remember the newspapers, Graphic Times, they took a shot of him, and it was the next Monday. It was out there, and everybody was looking at that. Robert commanded. He could throw a ball to a player and say, "Ball!"
Wow!
And I tell you, the ball will fly over. But I saw it as a psychological war, because you have heard of him, so you are already afraid of him. So even for you to be, comport yourself to score, you will be in a hurry to kick, because one thing they knew about him was he was somebody who can dive like a cat and hold you. And then, there's a story about him and Coach Adebi. He got Adebi injured. Dave was coming to score. He was playing for Vipers. And then he dived, he grabbed him, he rolled over with him, and the man got his fractured leg. And it became an issue, people talked about it. So I see it as something that scared players to get closer to him and will prefer shooting from a distance. Yes. But coming face to face, Robert will scare you. Robert will scare you. He comes out like a lion, he will scare you.
Can you give us another, we have seen some pictures, can you describe what he looked like?
Very tall, well built, very tall. He was a tall person, you know. He could stand in the post and then put his hand on top of the bar. He was quite tall.
Wow.
Robert was quite tall.
His hand on top of the bar?
Yes, not jumping. He would put his hand on top of the bar and then use it to lift himself. You know, he was tall. And when Robert is in the post and he stretch out his arms, you will see that he's like he's covered the post.
The post, there's nowhere to come in.
Yes.
How did Cape Coast handle Robert going to Kotoko?
It was so painful. It was so painful. You know, it was so painful. You know, like I said earlier on, there were curses left and right here and so on. But at the end of the day, they still loved him because whenever he came down until his death, he still had a following. He still had a following, you know. And no one is surprised that in Tama, it was a Cape Coaster who had that argument with him, which led to his being stabbed. You know, some of us see that bitterness maybe took that person a little off, of course, although he served his prison sentence already and so on. But some of us, as we grew up, we saw something different, that it was that pain of his departure.
That went in, yeah.
Yes.
So were we able to get the exact story of what happened, you know, in the process of losing his life?
They were at a drinking spot, and there was an exchange between him and some boys. You know, one of them was called Melfa. There was an exchange, and you know, Nab, as he's called, Nabin, he was also a bully. So I'm sure in the bar something happened that the guy did not like. So he went out. When he came, he was with a broken bottle, and then he stabbed him.
And that news as well. How did Cape Coast take it?
We never believed it, because people even earlier on linked it with Accra Great Olympics, because Accra Great Olympics and Kotoko were to play in the semi-finals of the African Club Champions.
Okay.
Oli had qualified for the semi-finals, and they were to play Kotoko. You know, they had played, I think, the first match in Accra and Kotoko. It had been a draw, so they were to play the second match in Kumasi in 2 weeks' time. So it was the first Sunday after the match. In those days, it was a 2-week interval, and that didn't happen. So people started pinpointing Oli as behind that whole thing. Yeah, but we never liked it.
Yeah, the funeral was held in Cape Coast.
Yes.
How was the day? Do you remember?
I would say it was like Ogwafe to Afashe. Or the Orange Friday, maybe.
Yeah.
Right from the RCC Junction, where they went and received the corpse, through the town of Cape Coast to the Cape Coast Town Hall, where he was laid in state. The 2 days was like, you know, a festival. Our brothers from Kumasi also paid their worthy respect for Robert. We had buses of supporters of Kumasi and Asante Kotoko, you know, and the Victoria Park where they had a funeral. No, it was a no-go area. the crowd. Oh, the farewell was fantastic and very memorable. You know, very memorable. I was in Form 3 at that time in Adesada College. Very memorable, 1972. I just can't forget it. You know, it was so memorable.